Hey gamers, welcome back to Game Master's Dungeon. I'm Brian, your Game Master. Today we're going to be doing part 2 of our coverage of the Dragon Ball role-playing game. Part 1, we talked about the introduction chapter and went over the character creation chapter. Had all the tools you were going to need to create your own Z-Fighter. This video we're going to go over the transformations chapter, which is going to contain all the different transformations that you have available to you throughout the course of the game based upon your race. Then we're also going to talk about the key techniques chapter, which is going to give you all the tools you're going to need to create your own special key techniques for your Z-Fighter. So if you've got the book downloaded from the website in the description box below and you're ready to follow along, let's get into it. All right, gamers, so here we are. We are in chapter 3. Starts on page 30 of the book. Version 0.52. If you happen to be watching this at a later date and there's an updated version, things like that, this may not be relevant if they change certain things or whatever. But for now, we're going to look at what they've got. So we got some cool colored art here of Goku. So it talks about transformations. So it talks about this section up here, basically talks about transformations in general. Then it talks about obtaining transformations. Basically, there's not a whole lot about obtaining the transformations, right? There's only like a paragraph about it. Basically, it's kind of up to GM discretion of how they want to incorporate them. I definitely suggest story-based acquisition of such transformations. Just like in the show, in the manga, you know, there's very epic moments where these transformations were acquired. I think it's going to make for a very good role-playing session, a good storyline, things like that. So we're going to go past some more art of Goku. It's going to talk about tiers of power in this section as well. Because some of the transformations will modify a mechanic that they use called tiers of power. You see here on the tiers of power. So most of the time you're going to start at tiers of power like tier 1 and starting in the game. So what the bonus is, so this bonus is your exploding dice. So when you roll a 10 in your dice pool, you get to roll an additional dice. A success will count from a 6 through 9, non-success 5 through 2, and failure is 1s. So you get up to like tier 3, 9s and 10s will now explode for additional dice. And successes go down to 5, like they do in Tiers of Power 2, but now basically 5 through 8 is a regular success. And then successes 4 through 2, failures 1. Then you get down into like tiers 9, like 6 through 10 explode. And successes 2 through 5. And then pretty much the only way you fail on something is by rolling a 1, which will then remove, gobble, one of the words that they use, gobble up one of your dice. Okay? Also, some of the tiers of power, some of the transformations are going to drain a certain amount of ki from your ki pool. So like I said, so when using a transformation, the user must have at least 1 turn worth of ki in their pool to use, or else they cannot transform. A turn of transforming is a full action of being interrupted breaks the transformation. Similarly, each transformation takes a certain amount of time to transform, represented in combat turns. We're going to talk. You'll see all those when we go over the individual transformations. So the first thing we get into is in the Arcosians, so like Frieza. So you're going to get, this is like, so the what tier of transformation is. So like basically if you're a Frieza race or Arcosian, your tier 1 is like your base form. Tier 2 is this form. Tier 3 is the big goofy alien long head thing. Then you've got your final form. Then there's 100% power. And then the 5th form, kind of like what Cooler had. Then you have the golden form. But let's look at them all. So you can kind of compare them all. So most of the transformations are going to have a box looks pretty similar to this. Additional bonuses. So physical damage healed upon full transformation completion. It doesn't drain any ki per turn. Additional penalties. It takes 1 turn to transform. There's a minimum of 5 tension needed to transform. In this version of the book, there's the new mechanic called tension. We're going to talk about that later in the combat chapter. Tension is kind of like as certain actions happen and as time progresses, the tension level will go up. That's the GM is going to have to like keep track of, and a minimum level of tension will be required for most of the transformations. So you see, second form needs 5, third form needs 10, final form needs 15, 100% needs 20. And now you see here, so basically it doesn't give you like straight additional bonuses right here. If you're looking at like second, third, and fourth form, basically all your physical damage is healed upon transformation, which can make you last in a fight quite a while. Once you get to 100% though, additional bonuses, you get +2 bonus dice to strength, and you get +1 bonus die to ki blasts, that skill. And it will drain 5 ki per turn. And like the fifth form, this heals all your damage, your physical damage, and you get a +2 bonus dice to strength, agility, and toughness. Only takes 1 turn to transform, doesn't drain any ki. Talks about the description here. Some of them will have a description right here. Some of them won't. Like these guys up here didn't. Pretty self-explanatory. You look at golden form, right? So this is going to give you a ton of bonus dice. Strength, agility, and toughness. And then +2 bonus die to ki blasts. 5 ki per turn. You need 20 tension. And then it's got like the description here. Some of it might be some notes on how to acquire it, or under certain circumstances this transformation may take place. So this can only be attained by releasing a prodigious strength from Intense training. As such, it is not a transformation usually attainable by Arcosians. So this is definitely one of those ones where you're going to have like a little storyline or a subplot or something for that particular character in order to gain access to that golden form. Then it's got like a behind the scenes sections. The Arcosians naturally have second, third, final, and 100% power. There's absolutely nothing stopping them from hunkering down and going all out at the very beginning. So technically, if the tension gets high enough, you can immediately transform. So if you want a meta, that's great. Or you could save it for when you're damaged, you transform, you can get your heal. And plus, it could be pretty epic in the fight if you use it at certain times like Frieza did in the show. So the fifth and golden forms, on the other hand, are forms only obtained through forms of arduous training. So this is definitely stuff you're going to the characters are going to have to work toward. Okay. Next, we've got the classic. We've got the Saiyan transformations. So we have Ozaru, right? Big monkey form. This gives you 3 bonus dice to strength and toughness. No ki drain. Takes 3 turns to transform. Die results do not grant additional bonus die. That's the penalty. So your 10s or 9s and 10s, whatever, that would normally explode and give additional die. Apparently this does not grant additional bonus die. And then it's got a huge description. It's only attainable if they have their tail. So if your Saiyan character doesn't have their tail, no monkey form for them, right? So if you guys are following along, I'll let you kind of read through the description so you can kind of understand it. Basically, you need a full moon or equivalent phenomenon. Like in the show, they have like fake moonlight that they're able to produce, like Vegeta did, in order to gain access to this form in the battle. Then you got the Super Saiyan, right? This is a tier 3 transformation. Once per combat, you may remove 1 point of fatigue. Now, fatigue, just to give you a quick synopsis, fatigue is pretty detrimental stuff as you gain fatigue through taking damage. We'll talk about exactly how the calculations work on that when we get into that chapter. Each point of fatigue you have reduces the dice pool by that amount. So say you have 3 fatigue points, it reduces all your pools by 3. And then if you ever get to a point where you want to do something and the amount of fatigue you have reduces your pool to 0 or less, you fall unconscious, right? So removing fatigue is very good. Gaining it can be bad. This also gives you +2 bonus dice to the ki stat and to strength. It drains 3 ki per turn. You need 5 tension to transform. The Ultra Super Saiyan, this is the big buff slow form, because they even kind of do a good job in adding in that penalty, right? Sure, you gain the strength and the ki bonuses, but then you take minus penalties to agility, so you're slower, just like it was in the show. You need 15 tension to transform to this, and it takes 2 turns. Got your Super Saiyan 2. This gives you the same benefits as Ultra Super Saiyan, but it does not give you the penalty to agility. It doesn't require as much ki per turn, and also it only takes a single turn to transform with the same amount of tension. Super Saiyan 3 gives you the same bonuses, except for now it gives you agility as well. It drains a lot, though, 8 ki per turn. It takes you 4 turns to transform, and you need 20 tension. Now, there are rules that you can reduce the time needed to make a transformation, but it's pretty costly to do so. We'll talk about that when we get there. Then you got your Super Saiyan God. This gives you 4 dice, strength, toughness, agility, and ki. It doesn't do any drain. And then you've got your big description here. Basically, you need 5 Saiyans pure of heart. Transfer their energy. The pure-hearted Saiyans must be holding hands, must make a difficulty number 6 ki control test. Transfer their ki into the host. So this is probably something your characters may not able to acquire unless you, as the GM, add additional Saiyans, like NPCs maybe, that are willing to give their energy to one of the characters in order to attain this transformation. Then you got Super Saiyan Blue, which is pretty cool. So this gives you the 4 dice to the four stats there. Only takes a single turn to transform. Super Saiyan Blue is a form related to the mastery of God Ki granted by Super Saiyan God. Skill being used by a single individual by manifesting their own God Ki. Saiyan may choose to use this transformation in place of Super Saiyan. Minimum of 5 tension required to transform to that. Then it goes into the behind the scenes. It was previously assumed from Goku's dialogue in Resurrection F. If you've seen that. So if not, there may be some spoilers in here. I'm not quite sure. He managed to achieve Super Saiyan Blue due to having reached Super Saiyan Godhood. Right, not to mention the 6 months of training. It basically kind of goes into some of the lore and stuff through the show, manga, of how these forms were attained. Next, we got the Namekians. All right, so we got the Great Namek. Basically, you're just big, huge Namek. The user may choose to increase their strength pool by sacrificing agility for the duration of the transformation. For each penalty die taken in agility, gain a bonus to strength. No drain, 2 turns to transform. You take 2 fatigue inflicted upon exiting. So if you acquire enough fatigue and then you exit this form, you might end up getting enough fatigue that just might make you unconscious. So definitely going to want to look out for that. They do include the Namekian fusion, the whole Piccolo nail, Voltron style where they kind of combine. Basically, now you have to read the description. It's kind of cool. It allows one Namekian to absorb another Namekian into them permanently. Now, this is something definitely like player characters are not going to want to do, unless it's like, maybe one guy is going to be leaving the game or something, and he's a Namekian, and the other guy's like, hey, let's fuse. So they can fuse together. Then the primary character is going to gain some bonuses. Basically increases their tier of power by 1. And the host also gains a free rank and the highest ranked attribute of the absorbed Namekian. All right, so you increase the tier of power is a pretty good buff because it increases your chance of successes, increases your chance of exploding dice most times. Also, free ranks is less XP you have to spend. We do have the Majin transformation. This has got a huge whole description box down here. I'll let you guys kind of read through that. Basically, you can absorb others and you gain stats of the character that you absorb. Basically, the Majin gains a free rank in the target's 2 highest skills and from their highest attribute. And their tier of power increases by 1, right? That's pretty good. So definitely, this is something to be watching out for, making sure the Majin characters are not just like turning people into cookies and eating them all or whatever, You got your android transformations. So what's kind of cool about like the general upgrade, so if you're playing just like the straight construct, you can get a mechanical upgrade, increases the android's combat prowess, increases their tier of power permanently by 1 each time they gain this upgrade. So no other stat bonuses, but upgrading your tier of power is still a pretty good buff. It's unusable by bio androids as well. So I guess you could be the like the construct and like the regular androids, but not bio androids like Cell, because he's got this whole section down here by himself. So he's got the absorption, the semi-perfect form, and the perfect form. So the absorption has got a huge block of text. Basically, let you guys read through that. It's going to work like how he absorbs the androids. The first one he gets turns him into semi-perfect. So if a bio-android successfully absorbs a cyborg or bio-android, they may choose to assume a new form. If they choose to transform, they compare their own stats to their target and take a free rank in all abilities that exceed their own. If this would force the bio-android to exceed 5 ranks in any attribute, they take a permanent bonus die in that attribute instead. This tier is permanently increased by half the tier of power of the target to a minimum of 1, right? So that's pretty strong. Get a free rank in all attributes that exceed their own. And then if it exceeds 5, get a bonus dice. So this is like the first time they reference this right here, exceeding 5 ranks. Because on the character sheet, there's only 5 ranks in each of the skills and the attributes. So this is the first time it mentions if you go over that, you get permanent die. Because like when you look at like the Super Saiyan and Frieza and all that stuff, there just says you gain all these bunch of flat bonuses. Like +4 to strength and all this other stuff. But it doesn't say if you exceed that, you gain bonuses. I'm assuming that if you exceed 5, anything over that is just lost. Okay. I've read through this once, maybe 1.5 times, and I couldn't really find any other instance where this is referenced. But we'll just assume that the excess is lost. Now, keep in mind, this book is still a work in progress. It even says that underneath the table of contents, right? They're still working on this. So there's a lot of things they're going to add, a lot of things they're going to change. I just want to get this out to you guys so you can take a look. If you guys play games, definitely give the creators some feedback on what you liked, what you didn't like, all that stuff over on their website, okay? Then you got your perfect form. You have to absorb another cyborg or bio-android. You can take a new form. And once again, you compare their own attributes to the target. And you take another free rank in all attributes that exceed their own. If you go over 5, you get a permanent die in that attribute instead. Their tier is permanently increased by half the tier of power of the target, minimum of 2. All right, so the bio-androids can get pretty strong. I mean, honestly, all the transformations are strong. But this one gaining with, if you go 5 or more in the rank, you just gain a permanent die, bonus die in that attribute instead. That's pretty good. Then we have like other transformations. So a good Kaioken. I was always a big Kaioken fan. Back in Saiyan Saga, I thought it was just amazing. So level 1, you get 1 die per level for all physical or ki checks. And then it doesn't drain any ki, but you gain 1 fatigue per turn per level used, inflicted on exit. So like your Kaioken times 2, times 3, times 4. So if you do a double Kaioken, you're going to get +2 die to all physical or ki checks, but you're going to take 2 fatigue per turn per level used, inflicted on exit, right? So this is like, you're going to get a lot of bonuses, but you're going to take a lot of penalties with it afterwards. So this is something like, even in the show, like it's something to be used very sparingly. It's that quick burst of power just to kind of, to try to beat the enemy really fast. And you've got your Shin Kaioken. It has the same bonuses and the same penalties. They may add an additional bonus die to their pool by using Kaioken by increasing fatigue, right? It's the same thing, pretty much. Because this is like a tier 1 transformation up here. This is tier 2. Right, 1 die per level for all. So user may add an additional bonus die when using Kaioken, increasing fatigue. Yeah. Then you got Perfect Kaioken. This gives you 2 dice per level for all physical and ki checks. Then you still only take the 1 fatigue per turn per level used. So the Perfect Kaioken basically gives you double the bonuses, but still only giving you the same penalty as the other ones. So definitely a lot better transformation. Then you have Awoken Potential and then Full Potential Unlock. So this one grants the user an additional tier of power and grants them 2 bonus die to an attribute determined upon gaining the transformation. That's kind of cool. You kind of like, oh, I need this and this. Instead of it just giving you like just static, it gives you this and this. You get to choose when you gain this transformation, which is kind of cool. Full Potential Unlock. This gives you 2 bonus dice to strength, toughness, agility, and ki. No penalties, no ki drain. This transformation draws out all the user's latent power, the awakening of the potential strength and skill within a fighter necessary for his great leap in power. Is so difficult to perform that it is typically only done by deities. And even then it takes a great deal of time, right? So this is something definitely, don't be handing this out willy-nilly if you're a GM. Then we got the section on improving a transformation. Just like how to improve the transformation. So first, improving a transformation takes intense training. In the franchise proper, we only see this occur over time skips or in the room of time and space. Space and time, same thing, right? Second, all a player has to do is ensure they have enough XP to purchase the upgrade they want. If a player has enough XP to purchase multiple upgrades during a single trading session, they may. Note, right? These upgrades and improvements are for non-permanent transformations, such as Super Saiyan, and non-permanent upgrades, such as Semi-Perfect. It's up to GM's discretion whether they will allow bonus die to carry from a previous transformation to an advanced transformation. As an example, so Super Saiyan 2 to Super Saiyan 3. Do all the bonuses carry over? It's up to you. I think they should just put this as like either it does or it doesn't. Because some GMs say no, some GMs may say yeah. If it's a little more static and if it does or doesn't, I think it's going to make it a little more even across the board, so to speak. So you've got your upgrades that you can purchase. So you can reduce the key drain, improve the bonus die to attributes, bonus dice to skills. So you could have Super Saiyan that then gives you could buy additional upgrades to give you bonus die to certain skills, which is kind of cool. Let you kind of customize your own transformations, right? Here's one for transformation speed. You can reduce the time to transform by 1 turn, where 0 turns constitutes as a free action. This is 25 XP times your tier of power. And then tension, you can reduce the tension needed to activate the transformation to a minimum of 0. It's 15 XP times your tier of power. Because some of those are like 20 tension. Now you can accrue a tension pretty quick, but if it's a slower paced fight, it might take a while to get to some of those higher tension levels. This could be something good, so you can use it early on. But then you got to think how epic is that though? Do you want to just, okay, everybody starts, everybody's like, Rawr! First turn, boom, we got Super Saiyans, we've got Final Forms, we've got this and that going. Now it's just a big battle royale of, almost godlike characters just, punching and blowing up worlds. I like the idea of like having the, fight starting out slow, working up, one guy transforms, the other guy then transforms as he takes damage and back and forth, kind of like in the show. Next, it talks about fusion. So this is using fusion dance. Fusion dance right here. So this is actually kind of cool how this works. So basically, how it's going to work for you, both the two characters that want to fuse have to perform the fusion dance. They didn't have to make acrobatics checks. As long as both score at least a single success and neither are interrupted during the course of the transformation, it's a success. Then basically, so the two players, so say me and dude over here, so we're like, okay, it's our fused character's turn. What are we gonna do? Okay, we want to do this. No, I think we do this. They have to agree on what actions they're gonna take. So because they're basically two entities in one body, kind of coming up with the plan together. So the players have to work together to control the character. And then it does some finagling with fate points, things like that. I'm not going to go over like all the details on it. Just know that they've included the fusion dance, and it's got some pretty cool rules making players work together. Obviously, this is not a permanent thing. Once fate points are depleted or certain fate points are used, the fusion can end prematurely and things like that. So like it makes you really strong, but then you have a very limited amount of time to use it, like Gogeta. All right, gamers, so here we are. We are now into Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is going to cover our key techniques. Now, there's a lot of math and some stuff may get confusing, but we're going to go through it pretty well. Hopefully you've got the book and you're able to kind of follow along, get some paper down, maybe kind of come up with your own key attack while we're doing this so you can kind of see how it goes. So let's just go ahead and jump right in here. So basically this first session talks about what ki is to the lore, what it means in Japanese. It even tells you right here that this part of the game is like really numbers intensive, but don't let that scare you. Okay? I'm here. I got your back. So the first section talks about key attacks. There's some things you need to do in order to create one, and it breaks them down into steps. So step one, you're gonna choose your foundation. What type of attack is it gonna be? Is it a ball, like an orb? You know, that fires just like a single orb? Is it a blast? Like, you know, you do like a big, just like energy just explodes like an AoE around you? Is it a beam, like the Kamehameha? Or is it a strike where you use ki, you infuse your hands and your feet to do additional damage with melee attacks? Okay? After you choose your foundation, what type of attack, you're going to need to choose your modifiers. These you have to do, because this is going to determine basically like the basics, the frame of how the technique is going to work. You have to determine how much ki it uses, how much damage amplification it has, how many turns you could charge the attack to do increased damage, and also its burst value. Basically, its burst value is how many times a single target can be hit with this technique in a single round, right? So like if you do like a big explosion, right, how many times is it going to be hit? Is it once? Will he get hit 5 times? We're going to go through that here in just a minute. Next, you're going to choose some extras if you want them or not. Properties: homing, piercing, stunning, armor breaker. We're going to go through the list when we get there. Then step 4, we're going to do all the calculations. It's going to give you an equation that you're basically just going to plug your numbers into, and then you're just going to finish out the equation, just add it all up, and it's going to give you a number of how much experience points it's going to cost to purchase that particular technique. Okay? So let's go into the basics here. So first you're going to choose what type of attack: ball, beam, blast, or strike. Right? So ball and strike have a ×1 multiplier. This is all XP, by the way. These multipliers are XP. Beam and blast have a 1.5 times. Okay? And it even gives you a quick description of what each type is, in case you're not quite sure. It does say strike uses strength plus martial arts like a regular melee attack, instead of ki plus ki blast or ki plus ki control. Next, you have to choose we have these 6 modifiers that have to be chosen. So damage amplification is how much additional damage does the attack do over the standard damage equation, right? So if it doesn't do any additional damage over the base equation, it's going to cost 1 experience point, okay? So as an example, say we're going to make a ball. Right now it's damage amplification, 1 XP. I just wanted to do basic damage. So I got 1 XP. Right now, our ball that does basic damage, 1 XP. How much ki is going to be used from your pool? Now you'll see that as the more ki needed, the cheaper the multiplier, right? So the more it takes to use, the cheaper it is XP wise. The less ki uses, the more expensive. Basically, that equates to as in the less ki it needs for me to use it, the more times I can use it with the same amount of ki. So it should be technically a stronger attack, because I can just spam it on you instead of one guy just gets like 1 or 2 attacks with it with his ki pool. Okay, so in our example, we've got our ball. We're going to do base damage. It's going to use 5 ki. Okay, so we're going to double the XP cost. So right now we were at 1, we double it, now it costs 2 XP. All right, so now we're on the burst value. So burst value modifies the number of attacks made in a single action. If the attack only does a single attack, it only hits once, it's basically ×1. If it could hit up to possibly 5 times, it's ×3 XP cost. Okay? Charge, how many turns can you charge it for? From 1 to 5. If you charge it over more than one turn, right, for each level of charge, so say as an example, my attack, I can charge for 3 rounds. At the end of 3 rounds, I fire it. If I hit, do 3 times the damage. Or if it's at 5, 5 times the damage. Obviously, you can see then the XP cost becomes exponentially nasty. Goes times 4, 6, 8, 10, okay? Minimum tension. How much tension of a minimum is needed before you can even attempt to use the attack. Obviously, the more tension needed in the combat to use the attack, the cheaper. The less, the more expensive. All right, so say if you had 10 tension needed in order to use the technique, it'd only be times 0.5. Okay, we'll get to the equation down in a bit here. So then piercing, this is how much armor the attack negates. If you want it to negate no armor or toughness, okay, it negates armor or toughness. If it doesn't do any of that, which is base cost, if you want it to ignore up to 5 armor or toughness, times 10 the cost. So piercing armor makes it pretty expensive. So then you've got the definitions of what each of those values mean. And I kind of talked about what each one does, right? The charge, minimum tension, all that stuff. You guys can read through this at your leisure to get, to get a more word for word understanding. So what you would do here is then you would go down to the equation. You're going to plug all this in to get your base XP cost. Once you have that, then if you want any of these additional properties, there is an additional multiplier. So after I use the first equation, say my attack ends up being 50. If I want it armor breaker, basically it ignores all toughness and physical armor. It'd be times 20 the cost, okay? Or if I wanted it blinding, like solar flare, times 3 the cost, right? So they have a bunch of different ones here. You guys can, if you get the book, read through these at your leisure, make your own techniques as some samples just to see if you've got it under control. Donation's kind of cool. You can like donate your energy to other people like they do in the series later on. Electrical freezing explosive. So like explosive, an attack with its purpose is able detonates. Yeah, still some text issues. Remember, it's still a work in progress. Not a complete finished product yet, so keep that in mind. Detonates on contact with the target. When calculating damage, this attack may get bonus die earlier than standard attacks. Hands free, you can use it like without using your hands. You don't have to do the, or the whatever. You can use your hands for other stuff. Quick shot, homing, remote control, the suicidal, shockwave, all these different descriptors, okay? Now, I would definitely bring yourselves to this box right here. Okay, let me get in here. This basically says, I'm sure you guys understand by now, this stuff is all extremely early game and hasn't undergone much playtesting. So this is kind of where those of us that are interested would download it, we would play it, we would give feedback to those creators. Good, bad feedback. Make it, if you're going to do it, I'd say you make it as constructive. Hey, I like this. What about this? Or this doesn't really seem to work. I had to make these kind of modifications in my game to achieve a more enjoyable or fluid experience, or however. Give them that feedback if you really want to see this become like a really, really well done homebrew. Okay. Now let's get into calculating costs. So it even goes through an example. So we'll use their example. So first they're going to have a beam attack. So its base is 1.5 times N. N is now going to be a combination of the damage amplification. In this example, they have damage amplification 2 with a cost of 4. So they put 4 where N was. Next is going to be key use, burst value, charge, and piercing. So their key use uses 5, which is times 2, right here. It's a beam type weapon, so they just ignore burst value because it's a times 1, right? It would just hit a single time, so times 1 doesn't really need to be added in. They can charge for 3 turns, which is a cost of 6. And then piercing, it doesn't do any piercing, so it's cost of 1 times 1. Now you do all this, now those of you that understand math, you do all the calculations in the parenthesis first, then you would multiply by 1.5, which gets a cost of 72. All right, so now we got our calculation. Then it goes into like using key attacks. So for offensive, it's your key attribute plus key blast. For non-offensive, like barrier, things like that, key plus key control. Calculations for damage are carried out in an identical fashion to physical attacks. You use successes to attack, plus key, plus amplified damage, if you bought that for your technique. Then it goes over again those key pool and U, tells you how to calculate your key pool again, talks about the power up rating, and it basically it gives you a reminder that it's all incredibly important in key-based combat, as you have to carefully manage your key pool, right? If you're going to be a key using character, you're definitely going to want to put points into these relevant skills here. So you have a larger key pool, bigger power up rating allows you to use more, right? So, and then here it's got a bunch of pre-made attacks. Oh god. Baku Hatsuha, right? So this attack used by Napa and others primarily used to destroy large areas with a huge explosion. Has barrier like Android 17 uses. Big Bang attack. We got Vegeta's technique. Blaster shell, death beam, destructo disc. You can see how some of these techniques, right? 200 for the Big Bang attack. But it's got explosive, it's got a high damage multiplication, minimum tension. Destructo disc is another 200 because it's got armor breaker and it's got homing. 5 damage amplification, 15 minimum tension. Energy Dan, this is like a generic catch-all technique for those barrages of energy balls that you see the cast use from time to time. Basically, it uses 1 key. It's got burst of 5, costs 15 XP. It doesn't really do anything else. It's just a bunch of little weak little attacks. You've got Final Flash, the Gallic Gun, the Kamehameha. So Kamehameha 72, right there. Gallic Gun 96. Final Flash is 150. You've got the Solar Flare, which is 72 because it's got the blinding property on it. Now we get to the Spirit Bomb. You're like, yeah, Brian, Spirit Bomb. Yeah, the Genki Dama. Fantastic. Let's do it. 1,875. But it's got damage amp of 10. It charges for 5 turns. You need 20 tension. It has armor breaker and explosive at 4. And it uses 10 key. Now, if you took off armor breaker, it would only be 94 XP. But I mean, it's the Spirit Bomb. It's got armor breaker. It's like, you know, the end-all be-all technique, supposedly, in my opinion. Then it talks about more coming soon, right? So that's the end of that chapter. What do you guys think? Now, like it says, right, that a lot of this stuff is still early playtesting. If you guys use this, if you guys make games, if you play, I would love to just kind of hear like, hey, how's your game going? What do you think of these rules? What kind of changes would you make? What kind of changes did you have to make? Did you leave any feedback to the creators? Because I would love to see this a full, fleshed out RPG. Like if another company is not going to do one, it relies on us as like a community of gamers to kind of create our own. Because Dragon Ball is huge, right? It's one of those games that everybody's always wanted one. Remember when I first got the Dragon Ball Z adventure game? It was the coolest thing. Some of my great memories of RP is when I was running those games. Like my friends, we were having these epic fights, and he's like, dude, my goosebumps, look at it, man. Look at that kind of stuff when you're able to tell a story and that kind of action and tension in your game. Like it just leads to just great experiences and great memories that I will have for the rest of my life. Unless something happens and I forget them or whatever. But that's what brings me to doing these videos for you guys, so I can share my passion, and also so we as like a community can make the games we love bigger and better. Well, all right, gamers, I hope you enjoyed this video. So once again, we went over the transformations and we went over the key chapter. So now we've got almost everything we need now to make us a character to get ready into the game. The third video is we're going to go over the last chapter, which is going to be combat. That's really more for GMs. Players are going to want to watch that as well, read that, so you kind of understand how it goes. It's relatively simple. Basically, it's a bunch of opposed tests. My dice pool versus the enemy's dice pool. Who gets more successes? Who hits? Deal damage. Reduce it through armor and toughness. And just multiple rounds until you beat the enemy, like most games. But it does have some really cool rules in there, like the tension rule, where certain things can only happen once tension is so high. Like a lot of transformations or certain key attacks. So you can get that feel that, like, in the beginning, it's a lot of hand-to-hand combat, weak attacks getting thrown around. You know, as the fight progresses, people are transforming, and, you know, then the fights are going one way, then the other, then one way, then the other. It's back and forth, and there's just a lot of, like, oh, who's going to win? You know, who's going to pull out the big win in the end? That's what I'm really excited to play test this, because I want to run a game. Maybe like, what if I ran like a world tournament? Several people make characters. I make some other NPCs or whatever. We just do like a world tournament ladder kind of thing, and just to test the rules, just to see how things go. Would anybody be interested in something like that? If so, put it down in the comments. I did get the channels and everything made in the Discord today for the Dragon Ball RPG. So I've got like a GM zone, character creation, general discussion. If you want to talk about this game with other people, hit it up over there. Link to the Discord will be down in the description box below. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, if you did, hit the like button. If you're just coming to the channel and you haven't subscribed and you enjoy my content and you want to see more, kind of help support, hit the sub button. I would love to see that. Welcome you into the welcome to the dungeon. You know, another dungeon delver or whatever. I don't really have a name for all of you. I should come up with something maybe. But with all of that being said, I appreciate all of you that have come to the channel, leaving some great comments and some great feedback. It's kind of helping us move things forward. Hope you're enjoying the content. Hope you're getting some ideas of games you want to play, or maybe even just helping you out with some of the questions you might have in some of the games you're running. But with that, until I see you again in the dungeon, I am Brian, your Game Master, and happy gaming.